Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode. Randy and I are excited to sit down and talk with Grant Aldrich. He is the CEO and founder of OnlineDegree.com. And Grant, we met a couple weeks ago. You were on my podcast, and it was such an interesting talk. I thought it would be a really positive talk to have with Randy and I as well. You know, we're recording this. It is my dog is barking. My landscaper's here. We're working from home. It's June 3rd, and you know we're coming out of COVID as far as being home. But I think the idea and the lenses of how people see the expense of college is something that has been and has been catapulted to change a bit. You have this company, Online Degree, where it's an affordable way of looking at college and taking classes. So talk a little bit about what that is, and then Randy and I want to just kind of dive in and talk about how the face of college may change over the next decade.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that
thank you.
Most people don't realize. That was very insightful, John.
Yeah.
But it is. It's correct. You know, what people don't realize is that the trends that we're seeing in higher education post-COVID were already happening. The die had already been cast, and this has really just hastened the events that were already going to take place, which was the emergence of online as opposed to traditional. And so, yeah, I'll tell you, at OnlineDegree.com, the whole goal was to make college affordable and accessible for everyone. And we looked out there that for working adults, there wasn't a good way to get back to school. So instead, we created something that was very revolutionary, actually, for the industry and disruptive, which is that now, rather than the traditional process of going back to school, which everybody knows, you can get started in 60 seconds. No entrance exams, no applications, register on our platform, immediately start taking college level courses for credit towards your degree to save time and money, and we provide it for free.
So when I hear that, I'm not Randy ask the next question, but when I think people hear that, they may say, too good to be true. That doesn't even sound right. What's the hook? What's the catch? What's the, it just sounds too good to be true. It makes me want to go back to college.
I take that as a point of pride when people do say that, actually. Yeah. Well, to understand why we're able to make it too good to be true we need to pull back another layer of the onion. So obviously for the consumer, we can understand how beneficial that is, right? Because when you go back to get your degree, the cost benefit has become completely out of whack. And the ROI is not there anymore. And so when people want to go upskill, which millions of people want to do, probably around 40 million, they don't take that step because they don't want to go into so much debt. They can't leave their job every day. They can't take time away from family. It's inaccessible. It's unaffordable.
Yeah.
And so obviously the benefit that we provide for the consumer is probably obvious, intuitive. However, for the university, we provide an immense benefit as well, because what people really don't know, it's a little known fact, is that universities are desperate for good students. And when I say good, I mean students who will finish their program, who will come prepared and ready to learn, who are familiar with an online learning management system, which is very different than a typical classroom. And so rather than the university having to invest in all their programs for onboarding and orientation, when students move through the OnlineDegree.com platform, they're essentially becoming better students. It inherently prepares them to be better when they arrive, prove they have the time management, be ready to approach this big decision of college. So it's completely sponsored by the universities. So I kind of pride myself in that we were able to create a solution out there that dispensed with the common tuition model, made it a free platform, and everybody wins. The universities win, and the students win.
So I have a follow-up question, just kind of understanding more the business model. So from the standpoint of cost, obviously Online Degree needs revenue. So I would assume that you have colleges, when you mentioned that they also benefit and are probably effectively partners with you, so to speak. Is there a shared expense program? How does your model continue to thrive, number one? And then number two, based on the universities you partner with, is there a distinction between accredited and unaccredited, and how that might affect, graduates' abilities to, capture those jobs that they want?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I'll start with your final question, which is that, what kind of schools we partner with. And really, we partner with some of the best schools in the country. And actually, predominantly, most of our partners are state schools, nonprofits. And we have a rule that we don't work with any institution that's not accredited. So no matter what, when someone comes on the platform, it's going to be an accredited institution. And there's pathways to all kinds of different schools for them. Now, that said, one of the things that I've tried to focus on is to bring adult-friendly schools to the platform. Because ultimately, we're trying to help that 35 or 40 million working adult get into and go back to school. And their needs are dramatically different than the needs of an 18-year-old going to a campus program. And so when I say adult-friendly, what I mean is that schools that are online, that do provide extra resources for working adults, who perhaps have accelerated programs, who are more affordable. And so those schools, by the way, are excellent schools, like University of Maryland system, right? One fantastic public school system in the country, Colorado State, Southern New Hampshire University. I mean, I could go on, but these are excellent institutions that have just adapted to become adult friendly. So when people come on, there's excellent options. And then to your point, your first point in your question was, how does that model work? And yeah, we've got so many partners now that their sponsorship of the platform pays for everything. And it allows us to provide everything that we do, because again, there's this benefit that we've created almost like a proving ground, like minor leagues of baseball in a way, to provide them a way to reach really quality students who want to go back to school.
That's now, is it only a 4-year, a 2-year, or is it a master's program as well, Grant?
So this is another good question. So OnlineDegree.com is like a modern alternative to a junior college experience, but it's not exactly the same. So if we think in the prior paradigm of a community college, we think, okay, I go to this school and I take 2 years worth of courses to get my associate's degree. And then after 2 years driving to campus, then I'm able to apply and attend a 4-year institution. OnlineDegree.com, one of the best parts about our platform is that we're not an institution. We're actually a non-collegiate provider. So we provide these courses and we don't grant the degree. We just provide excellent college level courses for you to take. And when you enroll at the institution, that's when you get the credit for the courses that you took. It's like when you enroll, let's say I want to go to Colorado State for a business degree. I take 5 courses at Online Degree. The minute I arrive, those courses materialize as credits. So it breaks down the paradigm that I have to sit in one place for 2 years. No, you can just take whatever courses you need towards your goal. And then the next big difference is that, prior to this, when someone said, hey, what are the ways to save when you go back to school? Right. Usually the 2 biggest things is go to community college, try to get some scholarships. So for the community college, we've really been able to help people save far more than that, because community college has a cost in most states. There is a fee to go to school. So our courses are free. And in addition to what we help for our students, we also go out and get them discounts at the institutions. And so let's say if that Colorado State example, you're able to take 44 units of credit on our platform. And again, on your pace for free. So that's the equivalent to the community college. And then the discount, we get an extra 10% discount for our students right off the top. No applications for scholarships, no risk in filling these things out for 5 weekends and you don't get anything. And then you actually get that when you enroll, an additional 10%, because they're willing to make these accommodations for our students because they are more prepared.
Wow.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Disruption.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
I said that's effectively disrupting effectively the way we know the educational system.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think, I really think that this is going to pave the way for a lot more people to be able to come back and upskill. I think it's far more disruptive for the working adult. And then also another little known fact is that universities are now focusing on working adults. Like there's also been a paradigm shift in higher education away from the 18-year-old where enrollments have been declining, and because of the millennials and these groups who don't value colleges highly, and into working adults who are going to be encouraged to learn forever, right? We don't just get a degree and stay in the same company for 50 years. We may need to adapt. And so that's where the focus is. And I think that we're focused on where the focus is in higher education.
That's incredible what you're doing. Let's talk about, I just want to expand this and where it could evolve to over the next decade. So right now we're talking about, college and getting ready to go to college, but what about master's programs and PhDs and, people who finish college or graduates and they get married, they have children, and they want to take classes along the way, but don't have time to do it full time. I mean, is this format the future of where we're going? And if so, how do you continually grow and scale and elevate your business so competitors, don't take up market share? Or how is there room for everybody?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, again, I'll start with your last question. This was a lot of work, and in fact, if you had told me how much work it would have been, right, I think I may have squashed even my entrepreneurial optimism from the very beginning on how hard this is. So I don't really think someone is going to come in and try to do this again, because I think it takes a convergence of so many different knowledge sets to actually produce what we did. And to make it work, it was so hard to get to survive during the first year and a half that I'm not saying it's impossible, but I hope someone is not as stubborn and perhaps stupid as I am. So, but we're here now, which is the good thing. It worked and we got through the other side. But, and just because everything in this space costs a lot to produce. It takes a lot to build courses. It takes a lot to, provide the support services for students. And so back to your core question, which is the master's and graduate degrees. This is a completely different beast, and I'll explain. So if someone doesn't have any degree, clearly they need to get a bachelor's degree before their graduate degree. Obviously, everything I just described can be very helpful. For the master's and graduate degree, the problem is that universities are unwilling to allow you to apply courses toward your graduate degree like they do for a bachelor's, because these programs are quite frankly, they're big money makers.
Yeah.
And so, while you can take 15 courses, let's say on our platform, 44 units out of 120 towards your bachelor's degree, almost no universities allow you to bring in credits for their master's. So we've actually tried to work at this in a couple different ways, because that is part of the demand. The first is that the discounts that we've organized for our students do apply to the master's degree, which is significant. So imagine that, that 10% discount will apply towards that master's degree. And again, that's a very big get for someone where there's really no concessions that are made at the master's level. So you can still come on our platform, take some courses, and as a student, because they feel that you're more prepared, you can get that. And again, those things vary. Some schools like University of Maryland, our discount is 25%.
Wow.
40% at Golden Gate University. Significant discounts to help people, whether that's on the master's or on the undergrad.
So I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, I'll just finish that. The last piece is we are working, because of the market demand. We're actually at the forefront of pushing universities to begin accepting courses. So because of the success that we've had as like almost a trial stimulation on the undergrad to get people taking courses and into degree programs, there are universities who are working very closely with us to actually accept a few courses, perhaps one or two, towards the master's program to do the exact same thing. So we're almost creating a market in a way.
And that's where I was going to go. It's kind of as a corollary to we just asked. And a lot of people I notice, especially on LinkedIn, will say that they went, for example, to Harvard. And when you go and look, they didn't necessarily go to Harvard undergrad or Harvard MBA, but they got, let's say, an executive program, which is a 1 week or 1 month or online degree, to basically say that they went to Harvard or whatever it might be. So my question is this: in order to get more participating universities, I assume there's a certain, intangible or je ne sais quoi to having the right university or universities to further embolden your model, right? To get more people wanting it, saying, yeah, I'll go there, save a lot of money or pay no money, and have those classes apply to this university that I want on my wall.
100%. That's correct. And so if I was gonna, if for the people to think about which types of universities, the top 0.5% or 0.25% of universities, which would include Harvard, are not making a lot of concessions for this because Harvard is incredibly exclusive. They don't have a mission of inclusiveness. They don't have a state charter where they need to accept. There's a lot of factors why those the Ivy Leagues and those schools are not going to be at the forefront of this. Mm-hmm. But that said, there's excellent schools who are, because a lot of the top schools in the country are state schools, and they do have these types of edicts from their respective taxpayers and whatnot. So you're right. It does take a university to be forward thinking to do this, or have some sort of DNA or philosophy that wants them to try to be more accommodating to make this possible for more students.
That's great.
So I have to ask one more question, because this is very interesting. This whole model, you got me spending, even as I was preparing for it, I didn't quite get the real depth of what's happening. And now I sort of understand your model, and it is fascinating, as Jonathan said. But in terms of the future, I'm a trust and estates attorney, and I do a lot of work in the financial planning world. And we're all familiar with the 529 plan. And the one thing about a 529 plan is taxpayers can put away tax advantage dollars to grow tax-free, that when it's used for qualified higher education expenses, can be used on a tax-free basis, right? Now, it can also be used for K through 12, but that's something that was recently added. But using it for qualified higher education, walk me through how families who are saving a lot of $529 now can be applied toward your program. And would that be tax favored? Because you're not necessarily a university, you're more of the feeder program, right?
That's right. Yeah, the way that I would look at that is that I think first, if I was speaking to a person, I'd say, get out of the paradigm that you attend a university for 4 years and you just, you accept what you have to accept in terms of costs and whatnot. Instead, think of the way that you have to hack your way through school. And I don't mean that in negative. I mean that in the most positive way possible. So as part of that strategy, I would actually not just recommend OnlineDegree.com. There's actually a few other things that I would recommend. So of course, OnlineDegree.com would be that first foundation that you would use to get those credits, let's say get the discount. And then beyond that, I would have a couple other recommendations. There's some exams that you can take to test out of further units, similar to an AP test, but not as difficult or challenging. It's for the layperson. So if you take a course or exam on English 1, you can test out. And so basically what all of those things do is to just chip away at the total number of units that you need to get, and thus the cost towards that degree. And that 529 plan that you're referring to, I think is excellent, because then the normal problem is that 529 plan never covers the full cost of education. It just covers a portion of it, and then you need to take out student loans to cover the vast majority of the rest, your living expenses, tuition, etc. So now what's great is that all of these things now make that 529 just more potent. You get so much more bang for the buck, and that plan will now be able to probably cover whatever the remaining expenses are when you do in fact go to school.
This is kind of like a master's class of how to go to college.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. From an affordability standpoint, talk to me about, my son is about to be a senior in high school, and we had talked when we talked a couple of weeks ago. You had said that they were going to be rolling this out, so actually kids in high school could start taking this, could start taking classes. So where are you with that? Because if that is the case, then you can just kind of prep before you even go to school.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. So as of right now, we, if you go onto the platform, we don't allow students who are under 18 or even international to enroll in the platform. And the logic with that was when we launched, this was designed for the working adult. And I didn't want to dilute our student support services by opening up the platform to everyone. I thought to myself, let's make this really good for who it's designed for. And then assuming we get that success, we can, of course, expand from there. And so now we're getting ready for that, because after we've seen that success, we get so many people banging on the door every day who are under 18, just as you, probably very similar to your son, John, who's, whether they're well ahead and they're very driven and they want to try to earn some units before school, or if it's part of a program where they're trying to help kids go back to school who perhaps had an early pregnancy or something of that sort. We kind of fit a good spot within that mix. And international students who, again, they really want to lower the cost of U.S. education because they don't have access to the loans and finance. They have to pay full price. So we're definitely getting towards that. But I'll be honest that when I looked at the problem for working adults, there were themes for working adults that were very applicable to almost all of them, right? The online nature was a big one, right? Most adults don't want to have to leave their work to go to a campus every day.
Right.
Certain degree programs in these online capacities were also very applicable. That doesn't always apply well to an 18-year-old. And so as we expand, we're just not there yet. No, so it could. So for example, let's say if your son was looking for a business degree, maybe a certain science degree on his way towards a graduate degree, it may work out really great. You think, oh, this is fantastic. I can do this, stay at home, save money, work, and then be able to apply that to where I'm going. But I'll give you another example. Let's say your son wants to be an electrical engineer. It's very difficult because we don't really have, right? He could probably take some courses to knock out some gen ed requirements, but we don't have enough there. Like the school discounts we don't have because those schools probably with the discounts don't offer an electrical engineering degree online.
Got it.
So it just depends. And I'll be honest with you guys, that's one of the tough things about this space is that there's so much customization for each person, and it's so complicated and confusing for each person because there are 7,000 institutions out there. They all treat it differently. There's many, many degree programs. There's many people, everybody has different needs and backgrounds. It's a very challenging thing to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed there are a lot of online programs, but the distinction that I now realize is that you are providing for college credits at those participating universities. So where somebody can go to, some random website or, many websites and get actual online programming, they're not getting the applicable credits that go along with it. And that's really, that's the business model that you have.
That's right. I love the fact we live in a world where you can go online and learn how to do anything. I mean, you can go to YouTube and pull up how to, I probably learned how to do more things on YouTube around my house than anything else. But you're right. The key distinction is that this platform is specific for people who want the degree or certification. So from that institution, that's the difference. And there's a lot of resources in the former and almost no resources in the latter to help people do.
Yeah,
it's amazing. You're offering a great gift to people and filling a gap that needed to be filled. So kudos to you for finding it and for filling it and creating not only a thriving business, but weathering the first year and a half, which is always the hardest for any business. My last question to you is, the kids graduating college today are graduating in a world that they really didn't think it was going to look probably like it is right now. What advice would you give them?
It would actually go back to that same advice I gave in the context of the working adult, which is don't take things at face value. You can hack your way through and save a ton of money. So for example, let's say even if someone wants to go to a traditional campus, there's nothing that says you can't apply what we do to a traditional campus or a lot of the tactics that we help educate people on that are, not well known. So I would say, okay, I'm going to make an example. Let's say that student wants to go to, make up any school, Duke.
University of Michigan. Okay.
University of Michigan. We'll use that one. There we go. The first thing I would tell them is that, look, first things first, there's these things called CLEP exams. And again, that's like equivalent to an AP course. Mm-hmm. Let's think about what you think you could pass. Let's look at your course plan and figure out what you can knock out and come into college with less or with more units. Because at the end of the day, that's the key. You have to take 120 units for that bachelor. And rather than paying $500 a unit at University of Michigan or something around that amount, you can get it for free, essentially.
Yeah.
And so again, the more that you do and the more that you kind of find those pathways, the better. And again, and to get outside of the paradigm of that, the scholarship in the community college system is the only way to do it. Yeah. And so in our case, I think we do have, I think University of Michigan is in our outer network. And so meaning that they will consider our courses for credit. We don't have a direct articulation agreement with them, but it's better than nothing. Wow. That again, you could chip away at that and start doing that so that you can lower the burden. And if I was going to talk to a young kid who's 18, I would say, look, you should do any of this anyway. So that way you don't have to take 18 units every semester and be killing yourself. You can take 12, focus on the courses you want to focus on for your degree, knock out those gen eds and have a really good time.
What piece of advice would you give someone who's graduating college today?
Yeah, I would say that mentally be prepared that you may have to come back. And that's not a bad thing. And that, and to view learning throughout your lifetime as just what it is. You're constantly going to be learning, and you're not going to just, rest your laurels on that one degree you got. I mean, most likely. I mean, even people, despite their fields, will get a graduate degree. They will maybe get a certification, like you said, Randy, some sort of certificate online. It never ends. And that's the key thing.
It's good. Randy, last question.
Yeah, I keep thinking about, my kids, I have 4 young children, and I'm always saving in the 529 plan. But of course, it's subject to market, fluctuation is, something like we've never seen in the last 6 months. But my question is, at what point will rising education costs stop? At what point do you say, all right, enough is enough, I'm done saving, or have I oversaved, or where is that delta? I mean, it's a moving target and nobody quite knows. So I'm curious to see your thoughts, Grant.
Yeah, this is a tough one to answer. I think there is going to be a big backlash at one point, because I think you're right. And first, I think to answer that, we have to think about, what's the core of the problem? Right? Because obviously inflation has reared its head across every asset class, but why is it so disproportionate in education? And I think that the real reason is that government is essentially at the core of the problem, because as they've increased the lending limits for higher education has, increased their results increased their costs as a result. Mm-hmm. And really, I think that what that truly is actually a subsidy to higher education indirectly. Because if someone can take out more money, well, then, that essentially helps that industry. Mm. I think that's the key problem. And I think that if they were going to keep increasing that we're going to see this. The other problem, though, ultimately is that, there's a supply problem. There's a lot of people now who are going back to school, and a lot of schools are going to be going under, I think, as a result of COVID. And so you also have you've got the crunch on the supply side. So I think really the only way out of this is that online becomes more ubiquitous. Yeah. Because inherently that lowers the cost of education, mm-hmm. because you don't have buildings and desks and things. It scales so well that the incremental cost of adding new students will bring the price down. Yeah. And I actually think that too, the stigma now is evaporating for online, where people realize that no, many degree programs are in fact better online as opposed to in a classroom. You've got less distraction. You've got a more immersive environment than me sitting with a pad and paper in a desk in a lecture hall. So I think all those things will eventually, hopefully, that's probably the issue and what we might be able to see as a way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you said online, I couldn't help but thinking about like online dating, right? Yep. Or paying for bottles of water. Right? We do that every day. Now, I'm a married man, but I know my friends that are single, it's all online because
That's right.
it's no more taboo. It's ubiquitous, as you said. So online learning, I could see that as really, really accelerating. So I see it as a lot of promise. And, sort of in closing, usually Jonathan makes me do the secondary closing. I'm going to go first, Jonathan. But this, to me, I've always said to Jonathan, I always rate my top podcasts. This is right up there. I've learned so much, and I still have so many questions. So I could see us going offline one day and just having a beer and chatting, because I'm really fascinated by the model. But they always say that there's no elevator to success. You got to take the stairs. But one thing that I admire about you is you've provided a great escalator.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you saying that.
Right.
Yeah, I love that, by the way.
I've really enjoyed this, Grant, and I look forward to having you on one day again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Grant, I'll just add with, you showcase, getting through college in general takes a lot of grit, takes a lot of resilience, takes a lot of tenacity, takes a ton of hard work. But also starting a business does as well. Especially when you are in new territory. One of my favorite shows is The Men That Built America, and then The Food That Built America, and The Cars That Built America. And in it, The Men That Built America starts with Vanderbilt, and there's nothing except, there wasn't Uber to decide that you needed to start Lyft. And so when you're charting on new territories and you're really a pioneer, that grit that needs to be part of the equation is so important. And so that to me is very inspiring to any business owner or business person who's watching this today. So thanks for providing something that is affordable. And Randy, to bank off of what you were saying, the word affordable no longer has taboo. Everybody is looking to figure out a way to save money, be more effective, be smarter in the way that they spend. And you've offered a great solution to give people, to give people another element to grow to feel like they have more dignity. And I think a lot of people want to go to college but can't afford it. And you've given them great entree. So thank you very much for what you do.
Wow, thank you guys. I think you guys have given me too much credit, right? I'm going to play this recording for my wife so she can hear this. But thank you. Honestly, it is. Those are the things that make it fun. I'll tell you that I was really missing in my prior life, where when you go to work every day, you enjoy it because you know that you're trying to do something impactful and that there's a benefit that's happening. And I always missed that, and because I always looked at other business models in the traditional sense, right? Traditional metrics. Oh, does the business scale? Is it a good business model? Yeah. But I missed that, and I think I finally found a place where I think I'm a lot happier. So thank you for that.
That's the key. So one of my favorite quotes by Tony Robbins: "Success minus fulfillment equals failure." If you're not fulfilled, I think post-COVID, you're going to see a lot of people who are. I just talked to a guy the other day who, while he was home, he ended up quitting his job and starting his own company because he realized he wanted to be with his kids. I've talked to a lot of people who realize, I got to pick up my game. I got to do more. This does a lot because we've had to look inward, and that does great things. But I think everyone's going to be on the quest for fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. That's right.
All right, man. Grant, thank you very much. Randy, always fun.
Thank you, guys.
I'm sure I'll talk
thank you guys.
Next Wednesday.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Grant, be well, be safe. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Randy. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good talking with you guys.